Hello, everyone, and welcome to Torch Sports. We start today with the Orange Zone crew. I'm your host, Jackson Schock, alongside our wonderful analysts, Sophie Starkey, Luke Attal, and Luke Lamery. We've got a great one for you today, so let's jump right in. Now, last Saturday, the Volunteers welcomed the Mississippi State Bulldogs as they celebrated homecoming by beating said Bulldogs. Now, let's take a little bit of a refresher at the post-game stats. As you can see, Tennessee with another sweep, which is a nice thing to see as they go into Athens next weekend. More on that later. Now, Tennessee wins every quarter, this is the first time they've walked into a second half with a lead since they played Kent State. September 14th. Wow. Think about how long that is.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. This is good football. It was ugly football, but good football, and they win in all major statistical categories. The biggest problem coming out of that game was Nico Iamaleava's health. Let's talk about that a little bit. What you got on that update?
100%. I mean, this was the big storyline from this game. Nico has a good first half. Fans are expecting to see him out there in the second half, and then you see Gaston Moore, and you're thinking, well, what's going on? Why is Nico not in the game right now? This is way too close to bench him. Something must have happened, and something did happen. Late in the first half, he got a big hit put on him, and he's on concussion protocol. Not what you want to hear from your quarterback, and people were concerned when they first heard Nico's on concussion protocol. Is he going to be ready for the Georgia game? A lot of questions were up in the air. Well, Heupel had his press conference earlier this week, and let's take a look at what he said about Nico's health for the Georgia game.
He was with us today. Had a really good day. Feel like he'll be in great shape for Saturday. But you guys can monitor the whatever the report is that comes out on Wednesday and track it through the week. But certainly feel like he'll be in a good spot.
Look, that looks like a guy that has been asked this question about a million times. Like, you can tell he's like, you know, look at the injury report coming out because I'm tired of answering these questions.
Well, even the reporter knew that too because he started that question with, let me just get this out of the way, the obvious. But that's great to hear. Heupel sounds like Nico's going to be ready to play, and the report that he was talking about that comes out on Wednesdays says that Nico is questionable for the game, but he was an active participant at practice on Wednesday. So things are looking good for Nico. Other notable injuries, though, that people were looking at is Dante Thornton. He is also listed as questionable for the game. That could be another big one if he isn't ready to go for Georgia. And Deshaun Bishop is still out with his lower body injury for the Vols.
Sweet. It's like I almost said NBA insider. It's like a college football insider. I love it. Let's move on to the defense. Sophie, let's run through kind of how they performed, what you think a big takeaway is. I mean, that was essentially kind of an expected win, and they came out and performed. But let's hear about what happened.
Yeah, definitely another expected and well-executed performance by our defense. This is the 10th game we have held a team to under 20 points. And so far this season, we've only allowed 33 combined points in the first half. Not to I'm not trying to say be overconfident, but our defense is first in the SEC for a reason. Now, the Mississippi State game was no exception to our spree of success. We had 4 sacks by 4 different players, 9 tackles for loss. Arion Carter and Jermod McCoy both led with 7 individual tackles each.
Does that warrant another Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. But look at this. We have 12 drives by Mississippi State. 7 of those our defense held to under 10 yards.
Oh, my God.
That's impressive.
I mean, not to say this was an expected win or an expected performance by our defense, but it was a little bit of an expected performance by our defense. Certainly hope they can keep that momentum going into this Georgia game.
Yeah, a little bit of a pad in the stats there, if you will. I want to talk about the offense because obviously it was successful going up against what Luke showed last week was the worst defense in the SEC and arguably in a while. I mean, 400-something yards every game is brutal. Regardless, if you notice, the play calling seemed kind of lazy. It seemed, when you're playing Madden or you're playing CFB, whatever, and you know you're going to win, it's just like, just run it. Let's run the clock, let's get out of here. And it seemed like they were doing that despite this beautiful pass by Nico to Dante Thornton, which ended up being a touchdown. Regardless, I mean, it seemed lazy. Now, part of that was because Nico left and they didn't want to get Gaston Moore hyped up too much or get him injured, God forbid. But it felt lazy. I wasn't impressed by the play calling. I think this is the opportunity to really prove that we can pass the ball. Now, I understand maybe you want to hide some of that stuff because you don't want to give Georgia tape. That's understandable. That's something I can kind of give some leeway to. But the play calling, I mean, running it every single time, and I'm going to talk about this more when it comes to the Georgia preview, it's not going to work against a team like Georgia, and not getting those reps is going to hurt this team.
Well, let me tell you here. Look, there's one thing right there. Let's talk special teams a little bit here because you can talk about being lazy. The special teams has improved drastically in the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the punt returns here. Squirrel White and Jermod McCoy returning punts. They're averaging 15 yards per punt return. Guess who comes out there freshman Boo Carter, and boy, is he scary. I mean, when he returns punts, it's scary as well. He returned his first punt for 28 yards, and then he returned 5 more punts. He averaged about, total was 56 yards. So really great punt returning coming out of Boo Carter. Let's talk Max Gilbert here, okay? He had that 51-yard bomb that he nailed. That was beautiful. Okay, going into that kick, he missed 5 of his last 6 kicks. Goes out there and absolutely drains it. Okay, and then he goes 4 for 4 in the entire game. So special teams is improving. Sure, there's some aspects that you can work on and improve, but special teams really looks good.
And Max Gilbert, after some of those kicks, he was getting animated out there. You can tell that he was excited. He had a big fist bump after one of them.
He wanted it.
Yeah.
He wanted it. Yeah, a little bit of.
Big
You know that's good for the confidence. too.
Oh yeah,
And for
it's so
football
mental.
fans too, it eases the minds of everybody because there were a lot of questions surrounding that after.
Well, overall, would you consider that game a success or a failure? I know they win, but with all the injuries, where do you rate that game, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think it's success. I don't think. On a scale of 1 to 10, we'll call it like a 7.
A 7?
Like,
Okay. I mean, it's a win, so it
exactly.
has to be passing.
It is a win. like we shouldn't take that for granted or anything. It's a good win against an SEC team, and the Vols played well. Are there stuff to improve on? Of course. There's always going to be stuff to improve on, especially going into Georgia week. But I think it was a solid win for the Vols.
Sure. All right, well, let's move on. We got new college football playoff rankings. We got to address all of that, and we've got plenty of opinions. So let's take a look at what the bracket looks like if the playoffs were to start right now. As you can see, some similarities, some differences. Boise State's still playing Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, BYU, and Texas are still projected to win their individual conferences. Notre Dame is now the current matchup. If the season were to end today, Tennessee would host a Notre Dame team. I think that would be a very fun game. Now, Ole Miss would play Penn State in Penn State. You could imagine maybe a little bit of a whiteout there. Another incredible atmosphere. A not so incredible atmosphere, Indiana hosting Alabama. I don't know. That feels like maybe another Vanderbilt game? I mean, the stadiums are very similar. Regardless, let's come back out and let's get to the discussion. One big blemish that I want to talk about and that I kind of have some skin in the game in is the fact that the committee clearly is favoring wins over quality of wins. Now, Notre Dame is up there. They have arguably one of the worst losses out of anybody in that playoff field, losing to NIU, who is a poor MAC team, let alone a poor team in general, not even a Power 5. That's not great, and yet they're still being rewarded for that. Additionally, Indiana is the 5th team in the nation. Who have they played? Penn State is the 4th team in the nation, not in that playoff, but where the rankings are right now. Who have they played? The combined ranked wins for Indiana and Penn State are 1. They have 1 ranked win. That is ridiculous. and this is, I promise there's no bias here. I'm a Big Ten kid, grown up through and through. Mom's a Maryland fan. I'm an OSU fan to a certain extent. But when you look at the regimen of an SEC schedule versus a Big Ten schedule, it is night and day different. 9 teams in the SEC are ranked. That's ridiculous. How many are ranked in the Big Ten? 4, and they're all in the top 5. That makes no sense. They're not playing anybody because half of their league is terrible. They need to get things together. The committee needs to realize that the strength of schedule is much more important than the total wins, because if you play nobody, you shouldn't deserve to get a high seed because of it. Now that that's over, let's go more specific. I want to look at the SEC. What do we call the SEC suburbs?
The suburbs. Yeah, let's take a look at it here. Look, let's go with Georgia first because they took a bad loss to Ole Miss last week. They're knocked down right at that edge. They're number 12. Okay, and this game this weekend is so important, not only for Georgia but for the Vols as well, because this game, you take another loss, could be big consequences. Let's look Texas A&M here. They'd have to win out. The big one they're looking at is Texas to end their season. If they can get that, they'll probably be in the playoffs, but they have to win out. The first 2 aren't bad. Texas is the big one. Ole Miss, let's say Ole Miss surprised me. I was really giving them some slack last time, going into Georgia, but they surprised me. They did very well. Let's look at, they have Florida and Mississippi State for their last 2 games of the week. But, I mean, it's 2 SEC conference rivals. I mean, you look at it, not the best conference rivals, but still nonetheless SEC. Alabama, they rose to 10 after just absolutely knocking through LSU. LSU falls down to number 22. Alabama should remain in the picture this week. They're playing Mercer. If they lose, they absolutely deserve to not be in the playoffs. But Alabama, Mercer this week, and then you got to watch out for Bama because they have Oklahoma next week. So keep an eye on everything SEC related.
And I'm going to play off what you said. I'm going to look at Georgia for these college football playoffs. And Georgia, as much as I like to criticize them, they're ranked number 12 right now. You can't look me in the eyes and tell me that's not a top 10 team in the country. You're going to tell me Georgia is a worse team than Miami? That is ridiculous.
They're so inconsistent.
The one thing I will say about Indiana.
I know you're high on Indiana, but regardless.
Briefly, the one thing I will say about Indiana is that their margin of victory is insane. It's
Sure.
like 34.
Then let's say Penn State. Let's say
Strength
Penn
of
State.
schedule.
Penn State is not a better team than Georgia. Miami, not a better team than Georgia. Ole Miss beat Georgia, but I would put Georgia over Ole Miss in these rankings because Ole Miss, they've only played 2 ranked matchups, Georgia, and then they lost to LSU. Georgia, you mentioned strength of schedule. I look at strength of record, which according to ESPN's Football Power Index is their schedule right now, their wins and losses. The strength of record is how likely the average top 25 team is to have that record with their schedule. Georgia's at the top of that list.
Number 1.
They've had the toughest schedule this year of any team in the country, and the playoff committee is not respecting that, in my opinion. And like you said, they're not respecting good wins over just wins.
It's getting feisty.
This is getting you're getting to see kind of the effect that the playoffs have on the average public, let alone sports super fans up here. Let's round up with the team that I kind of knocked earlier, Notre Dame.
Yeah, if you can't tell, I think Jackson's got a little of a love-hate
fired up.
relationship with Notre Dame. Not sure he likes them that much.
One more than the other.
Yeah. Again, reiterating what you said, worst loss so far in that ranking. NIU, 14-16, horrible game on both sides of the ball. They don't have a conference. The only ranked team they beat when they played them was their season opener against Texas A&M, who wasn't playing near as good of ball as they're playing now. Now, what does this mean for Tennessee? Strength of schedule-wise, Notre Dame is behind Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. 2 of those teams, Alabama and Georgia, rank behind them right now. So if Tennessee loses to Georgia and we drop drastically, Notre Dame is still in front of us with a worse strength of schedule than all 3 of those teams. That does not make any sense to me. We're going to see how it unfolds, but I think they're ranked a little too high right now.
Yeah, you and me both. You and me both, and I'm sure plenty other of Tennessee fans. Now let's wrap this up. And when we come back to the Orange Zone, we're going to be taking a look at how the Tennessee Volunteers match up with the Georgia Bulldogs. And trust me, we're going to get pretty in-depth here. It's going to look pretty good. Stick with us. We'll see you on the other side.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We are the Tennessee Volunteers. People who create connections, push boundaries, do the research that changes lives. We've got world-class academics and championship athletics. To be the best, you gotta learn from the best. And if you wanna lead, you gotta light the way. We've got what it takes. It takes a volunteer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rocky Talk. I am Jeremy Knopf. This is Jordan Smitherman. That is Nick Rose. Pleasure to have you both back on the show. And without further ado, let's dive in with an NFL recap. It has been a crazy week of action across the country, but I believe nothing beats that Sunday night thriller between the 7-1 Detroit Lions and the Houston Texans sporting their battle red uniforms. If you got to watch this game at home or at your favorite sports bar, then you were in for a treat. Let's relive some of the best highlights from this exhilarating matchup on NBC. So you start off here, the Texans are in control. There's C.J. Stroud, touchdown into the end zone to John Mechie III. They go up 23-7 at the half. but the Lions are clawing back. Jared Goff with a screen pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown runs it in for 6. 2 minutes left in the game, tied at 23. Kymie Fairbairn to kick a game-winning field goal, but misses it to the left, doesn't even hit the net. Here comes the UFL legend Jake Bates to attempt the same, and just squeezes it in for 3. That is the game winner. The Lions beat the Texans 26-23. An exciting game on Sunday night. Well, I know that everybody wants to talk about how incredible the Lions were in that comeback win. But let's talk about what the heck happened to the Texans, because they had this game in the bag. And despite that 16-point halftime lead and defensive takeaways, they still lost. So let me start with Jordan first. Do you think that Coach DeMeco Ryans still has his team where they can go far into the playoffs, or is this squad destined to have a first-round exit if they even make it there?
I think this squad can still go far. I mean, let's talk about it. The Lions, are a team of destiny at this point. Them and the Chiefs, they have some type of magic going on where, you can't explain it. The fact that the Lions still won throwing 5 interceptions is just crazy. It's sorcery. The Texans are still a good team. The Lions great teams just find ways to win. And, the Texans are a good team, but they're not a great team. I still think that they can win a game in the playoffs. Now, I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to make it to the AFC Championship, but I definitely think they're going to win one game. C.J. Stroud is still that guy. I mean, he's been wheeling and dealing all season. I mean, people can say it's a sophomore slump, but not as bad as, other quarterbacks I've seen. And he still has his weapons all around him. I mean, they could get Nico Collins back this week, which is his favorite target, and they still have Joe Mixon, and they still have Tank Dell, and they still have it sucks that Stephon Diggs is out, but he still has all of his weapons around him, and they have a favorable schedule coming up. I mean, they play the Titans twice, so yeah.
All right.
But I still think they're a team that can make the playoffs, can win a game. I still think they got it, but they just faced the Lions, so.
Of course. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Jordan. I think the Texans are first round exit, And the reason I believe that, they play in a very, very weak AFC South. That is one of the weaker conferences in the entire NFL. You have the Colts, bad. You have the Jaguars, really bad. And then what's the other team left? The Titans? Come on now. So you look at who they're playing. It's really not good. And they're 6-4 or 7-3, somewhere right around there. I think they're definitely going to win the AFC South.
Yeah,
now,
but my point is to get into the playoffs that they're going to win the division easily. So that's why they're going to get in the playoffs and they're going to win a game. They won a game last year against, I forgot who it was, but they won the playoffs last year. If C.J. Stroud can win a playoff game in his first year, he can definitely do it in his second year.
I do think they can, but I don't think they will. And that's mostly because of how their O-line has been playing. There was a play there where their own lineman, Titus Howard, basically sacked C.J. Stroud and stripped him of the football, and it resulted in a turnover. And you look at how their offensive line has been playing. They've allowed a ton of sacks. He's missing Stephon Diggs, arguably one of the better wide receivers in the entire league. You said they get Nico Collins back. We'll have to work him back up to pace because he's missed a lot of game time. And all those factors, I think it's just too much. The little bit of a sophomore slump, I don't really think C.J. Stroud's been having. I think it's more him missing targets. But I do think that they're going to lose in the first round.
But I also think with the O-line playing bad for the Texans that C.J. Stroud is a good enough quarterback to escape the pressure and make plays when plays don't seem to be there. He's the type of quarterback to go and continue making plays for his team even if everyone else around him is doing bad. I mean, he still didn't. I mean, it was a game of interceptions against the Lions and the Texans. Jared Goff had 5. He was an MVP candidate before this. And then C.J. Stroud throws 2. I mean, there's 7 interceptions, so they both had a bad game. But I still think C.J. Stroud can take the Texans to win a playoff game.
Yeah, well, the Texans, we know that they have been through a lot over these last 2 weeks. They lost a Thursday night game to the Jets. Very unacceptable, and then you do this back at home. But on the other hand, they are in a division that we would say is garbage.
Yeah,
so we'll see how the Houston Texans can get back on track this season before the postseason rolls around. And speaking of playoffs, let's have a glance at the current NFL playoff picture. So boom, let's show it up there on the video board. If the season ended today, this is what the playoff picture looked like. Get the camera off of Nick, get it on the playoff picture. There we go, there you see. So at the top you have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions at number 1. Not a whole big surprise, but what I want to focus on today are these wild card teams. So on the AFC side, you have the Denver Broncos at 7. Had a heartbreaking game against the Chiefs, but they're still at number 7. you have the Los Angeles Chargers number 6, the Baltimore Ravens at 5. And then on the NFC side of things, you got the Green Bay Packers, Washington Commanders, and the Minnesota Vikings. So let's start with Nick on this one first. Out of all these teams that you see on here, seeded 5 through 7, which one of these teams, AFC, NFC, has the best chance at going on a deep playoff run, potentially compete for Super Bowl, and who is that star player that is going to make it happen?
Give me the Vikings. The Vikings are really deep. They've had a lot of injuries, especially with quarterback. You go into the year expecting J.J. McCarthy to take over at some point, and you have Sam Darnold kind of as the transition quarterback. And you look at that, he's had an okay year. But what the Vikings have is Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell, in my mind, is one of the best, if not the best, coach in the entire league. He had them competing last year when they were severely hurt. This year, they're a bit more healthier. They have Justin Jefferson still. They have Aaron Jones in the backfield. I really like Kevin O'Connell. He is really good offensively. They've had good enough defenses to win. They just so happen to be in the same conference as the Detroit Lions, who, as Jordan said, have some kind of voodoo magic going on, where they just can't seem to lose. So give me the Vikings to make a deep playoff run. I expect them probably could even make the conference championship.
Also, with the Vikings, do you think Sam Darnold has enough playoff experience? Because I think he could be a good quarterback right now, but I don't know if he can handle the pressure in the playoffs with everything going on around him.
Sam Darnold's been a veteran quarterback. He's been around the league at this point. He's seen it all pretty much. He's been around younger guys. He's been around older guys. I feel like all that experience is really coming out this year, and you'll see it if it gets into a late game situation where you'll show that maturity that he's learned over the years.
Okay. Well, it is going to be an incredible last 2 months of the NFL season. We'll see which teams can make a last-minute playoff push and get into the running for Super Bowl in New Orleans. But now let's transition from the gridiron to the hardwood as the second annual Emirates NBA Cup is officially underway. And one team in particular that's hoping to get their head back in the game during this competition are the reigning Cup champions, the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, as you see, despite the star-studded lineup, including 2022-year veteran LeBron James, All-Star Anthony Davis, and also Vol legends Dalton Knecht, they find themselves at a 7-4 record. They did get a win in their game last night against the Memphis Grizzlies, but they still have a lot to prove. So very quickly here, we'll take it back to Jordan on this one. Besides LeBron James, who's going to be that one player on the Lakers who's going to have to really step it up and to be very successful in this NBA Cup championship and beyond? What do you say?
I'm going to have to go with Anthony Davis. I mean, who else is there to say at this point? He is having a career year. I mean, he should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year. And this year, he's averaging 31 points and 11 rebounds a game. A double-double. He's averaging that within a couple games. I mean, he is just on beast mode right now. And just like he's doing something that like no other person is doing. There hasn't been one game where he's scored less than 20 points, and he's in like top 5 in scoring for the Lakers. And if they can get LeBron James playing at the level he is, he just had a triple-double the other game. Like you said, he's in his 22nd season, and he's still playing like he is today. And if you get Anthony Davis, if they can both have a stellar game on there and then sprinkle some Dalton Knecht in there, they'd be amazing. So they really need Anthony Davis to continue being that beast he is. And if they do that, watch out.
Yeah, AD's been phenomenal this year, as you said, 30 and 11. But another guy I want to point out on that Lakers team is D'Angelo Russell. He has been really bad over the last for the beginning of the season, and then the series against the Nuggets last year to end the year. 12 points, about 5 assists, 1.5 turnovers, but it's his shooting efficiency that I want to point out. He's shooting 40% from the field and 30% from 3. From a guy that's potentially your starting point guard, you kind of want him to be at least a little bit more efficient, or if not, stop taking those shots and focus on facilitating the offense and getting those assists up.
Dalton Knecht is kind of like taking his shine away from him, and he's like having trouble adjusting, or do you think like D'Lo's just having like a bad season?
I just think D'Lo's been cold. He's been cold for a little while, and Dalton Knecht is going to keep that Lakers offense moving. We see J.J. Redick. He's trying to play Dalton Knecht as how he played. Slightly different. I think Dalton Knecht's just a wee bit more athletic than J.J. Redick ever was. But I do think D'Lo needs to step it up big time. You said Anthony Davis. He's been stepping up, and they're still having trouble winning some of these games. LeBron, 3 straight triple-doubles. You can't really ask much more of an old man at this point. And so you got to look around, and it's like Rui Hachimura, he's been performing pretty well. And then, Russell has been struggling. So I do think Russell's got to step it up big time.
Well, we'll see if the Lakers can get things turned around. It's going to be a great NBA Cup competition. Wish all the teams the best of luck and see who comes out on top. But that will just about wrap things up for us today. It was wonderful to have you two back on the desk. That is it for Rocky Talk, but don't go anywhere because more Torch Sports Live is coming up right after these messages.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
Right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We are the Tennessee Volunteers. People who create connections, push boundaries, do the research that changes lives. We've got world-class academics and championship athletics. To be the best, you gotta learn from the best. And if you wanna lead, you gotta light the way. We've got what it takes. It takes a volunteer.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Summit. I'm your host, Brandon Goggins, alongside Alex Carpenter, Patrick Falcon, and can't forget Alexi Cowan. Today, we're going to dive into some Tennessee basketball, covering some of the action from both the men's and the women's teams now that the full season is underway. I want to start with the women's team, though. The Lady Vols, they have showcased their dominance early in the season, first with a 48-point victory over Samford, a 40-point victory over UT Martin, but this time only a 14-point win over MTSU on Tuesday. What would you guys say that the main difference was that you all saw between the first two games and this most recent one?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with the defensive side of the ball. When you give up 50 and 53, and then Middle Tennessee State puts up 75 on you, something went wrong there. So let's start off with the turnovers. Versus Samford, we had 27 steals and 6 blocks. UT Martin, 18 steals and 3 blocks. This game, only 13 steals and 2 blocks. We weren't getting the turnovers. We weren't getting the extra possessions. And then we had these silly fouls. It's like we were playing lazy. I don't know what was going on, but Middle Tennessee should have had more points. They had 28 free throws. They shot just above a 50% free throw percentage. They should have had so many more points. Our defense just wasn't there.
I got to tell you something, though, Brandon. This MTSU team was a lot more well-experienced than the past two opponents we've played. This is a team that's coming off back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, and last year they even upset number 6 seed Louisville. This is a team that has a veteran core. They played their 5 starters the majority of the game. So these people were playing against the press that Tennessee loves to do for an entire 4 quarters. It was an impressive performance by MTSU, and I feel like Tennessee struggled a little bit, and this was a good challenge for them.
I agree, and I think, at the beginning of the season, we had to start hot. We wanted to see what was going to happen, and so, yeah, we had a great couple first games, but it is going to die down a little bit, and you're going to have to expect that. And a big thing that I noticed when you sit down, lay it all out, and you look at the stats, you have a difference in steals. The steals are slightly decreasing each game, and that's going to slightly decrease our points because we've been getting a lot of shots off of our steals.
For sure, and I kind of want to piggyback off of this. I feel like it's kind of evident that Kim Caldwell, she's brought a whole new coaching strategy to Tennessee, and so far, I mean, so good. It's been working out for us so far. One thing that people are starting to grow concerned about are her substitutions and her rotations. She likes to sub in groups of 4 to 5 at a time every few minutes, kind of like an AAU team. I used to hate playing against teams like that back in the day. But you've never seen it at this level, or you don't see it that often. So I want to ask you guys, do you think this is an ideal strategy for her and her style of play, or do you think that she'll continue these rotations when we start to get into SEC play and other ranked opponents?
Okay, listen. You all need to trust her until she gives you a reason not to. I have this weird sense of trust in this woman, and I just can't wait to see what she does. I trust her with everything in me. She can start 6 out there.
That's something. That's something right there.
I don't know what it is about her, but she can put 6 players out there, and I'll be like, yes, ma'am, let's go. Like, I feel like she knows what she's doing. So I do think that she is going to keep subbing those 5 out. I think that's her plan until we get into SEC play. Now, when we get into SEC play, I think it's going to be more, we're going to need some one-on-one switches just for matchups. But trust the process, guys. We're doubting too much in this woman.
I think you make a great point with trusting the process. We've seen this team do things that Tennessee teams have not done since Pat Summitt was coaching this team. I remember going into Thompson Bowling Arena for the game against Carson Newman, and we scored 130-something points. That was unreal.
135.
That was an unreal performance, and it was because of this constant pressure that she does. I've never seen anything like it at this level. You mentioned AAU ball. I'm not used to a college-level team subbing 5 in, 5 out, and it working. I mean, normally you do it when a coach gets mad and says, get all those guys out of there right now. But she's doing it to keep them fresh, keep their legs moving, and keep the pressure on the other team. And it's worked so far. My only question is, will it work when we get into the nitty-gritty of the SEC? When we play those teams like UConn to start off, or we play South Carolina, can you keep the pressure on? Because do you have the talent and the depth to do it?
Yeah, depth's going to be the big question there. Another NBA team said trust the process, and so far that hasn't worked out too well for them. You know, I'm not saying anything. I love Kim Caldwell. I trust her a lot. I agree with you. She has to give me a reason not to believe her. Her team's 5-time leading the country in scoring, 4-time leading in threes. So it's not a rhythm problem. It's not that we're not getting to a rhythm. I think the depth concern comes on the defensive side of the ball. How well are we going to match up? Are we going to have 10 that can match up with their 5, 6, 7, however many it is? I do think that'll decrease the subbing a little bit, but I think we do have somewhat of that depth, and she hasn't proved us wrong so far. So.
And here's another reason why you should trust that process. We just signed a 5-star recruit, number 6 in the nation according to ESPN. So she's doing what she needs to do to keep building this program.
She's crafting this roster around this philosophy of subbing in and out like that. It's not just random players going in at random times. She's recruiting. She brought in transfers that way. She's building this system that can do that substitution, that can play her style of ball.
Hot take, I'm more excited about the women's season this year than the men's season.
That's not ridiculous.
I think we're looking more like a national championship team.
It's not ridiculous at all. Yeah, Coach Kim Caldwell, she was asked about the substitutions. Samara Spencer, she was getting hot in the game against MTSU, and she was asked about an oppressor. She didn't seem too worried about it at all, about a hot streak getting broken. She knows that they're going to get back in there, and they're going to go fire away, and it's going to be all good. I want to swing things over to the men's hoops. I want to talk about the Vols, who are coming off of a victory against Montana, pushing them to 3-0. I want to talk Chaz Lanier. He is currently the leading scorer for the Vols in terms of points per game, with a little over 16 a game. He wasn't the recent. He didn't have the most points on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But for the other games, including the exhibition, he was the leading scorer. I want to ask you guys, do you feel like the team can rely on him to take over these games offensively, similar to how Dalton Knecht did last year, or no?
No.
No.
DK averaged 21.7 points per game last year. So far, Chaz is just over 16. He's still kind of getting to his groove as a transfer, but it's definitely going to be more of an all-around effort. I do like him, especially when he's chucking it, when he's getting those threes up, when he's getting hot. He's playing great. But it seems like every night we got a new leading scorer. Even Ziegler's averaging 14.3, and he's supposed to be our defense and assist guy. But it's just an all-around kind of effort with different guys chipping in this night, different guys chipping in that night. I do think, though, consistently, if we need a guy to get a bucket, if we need a guy to rely on, it will be him as a number one scorer, just not to the level that Dalton Knecht was at.
You are not going to have another player like Dalton Knecht in a decade. Maybe give it a century.
Diamond in the rough.
Our records that we have, we're not going to have another guy like that in a while. So don't even compare that man to my king, Dalton Connect. Don't even go there, because that's not happening for a while. But go him. I hope he does great.
He's going to do good.
But not Dalton Connect level.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think you have to have that
Yeah,
for this
exactly.
team to be
No.
successful, because you have other guys on this team who are willing to step up. Let's look at last year's team. You had Dalton Connect, and then you had kind of a level between them and the other players on the team. You had Zakai Ziegler kind of take that next step and become a star for your team. But Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James were not really as prevalent of scorers as we see on this year's team. I want to focus on Igor Milicic.
Yeah.
The Charlotte transfer had 18 points, 10 rebounds last night against Montana, and he took over the game yesterday. It was really impressive to see him kind of flow into that big man, but also able to dribble the ball a little bit. He's playing forward right now. He's 6'10", so he's got the size to be able to make plays, and I think that he's going to be someone who can be relied on when Chaz is not on one night, because he's a volume shooter.
Yeah, I don't think we can rely on anybody at this point. The Cards are.
It's early, though.
It
It's
is.
They're still gelling. They're still getting, their grooves.
There's so many transfers on this team.
I'm nervous about Zakai this year.
Why is that?
I don't know why. He's not coming out like I thought he would.
Yeah.
I thought his senior season he would come out just more of a leader, and I'm just not seeing that.
And what about Dubar? When Dubar comes back, hopefully he can fit into this offense pretty decently, and we can have another offensive threat.
For sure. I have no doubt that Rick is going to be able to integrate him into the system, and he'll have no trouble. Is there anybody that you guys need to see more from this season at all, or anybody that needs to take that next step? Because I know that I was going to ask if there was anybody that we needed to rely on scoring-wise, but you guys said that we need to be more as a system, more as a team.
Whoever it is at center, I don't care. I don't care if it's like Parr. I don't care if it's Estrella. Maybe Igor wants to step into center, or that 4-5 role. But we need more points inside. We're not getting enough. It's a lot of shooting. What happens when we get a cold night against a really good Alabama team, a really good Auburn team? We're going to need to just be able to get a couple, in the post passes, drop step, get a dunk. Something like that. We're going to need a couple easy ones, and we're not getting that right now.
For me, it absolutely has to be Jemai Meshack. Jemai Meshack is a defensive weapon, and we've known that for his entire career at Tennessee. Where he struggles is offensively. Now, we saw and we've heard the reports that he shot over 30,000 jump shots over the offseason trying to get better and improve his craft. And I think we've seen a little bit of an increase in his shots and his ability to be like, all right, this is mine. I'm going to take this basket and let's go. But I think I need to see more from him. I need him to be a reliable, if he can just score 2 threes a game, just be a threat, then I think this team can go far.
I want to see our big man JP come into action this year. I love that guy. He's such a personality. And I just want to see some rebounding. I think we saw that a lot last year. What's the guy that transferred from us last year?
Jonas Aidoo?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. We need somebody to step in for him. And JP Estrella did that the last couple games at the end of the season. And so I want him to do that again. I'm excited about it.
For sure. That's going to wrap things up for the Summit. Again, I'm your host, Brandon Goggins, signing off for Alex, Alexi, and Patrick. We're going to send it back over to Orange Zone. Thank you for watching.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh,
What's the news?
or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Be right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We are the Tennessee Volunteers. People who create connections, push boundaries, do the research that changes lives. We've got world-class academics and championship athletics. To be the best, you gotta learn from the best. And if you wanna lead, you gotta light the way. We've got what it takes. It takes a volunteer.
Welcome back to the Orange Zone. On my right, Sophie Starkey. On the left, Luke Attal and Luke Lamry. I'm Jackson Schock. And, well, this is it. Tennessee travels down to Athens to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. And if the Vols win, the SEC championship is in the cards. The playoffs are certainly in the cards. However, if they lose, those two things may be taken away from us very quickly. Now, to get a better idea on how this game may go, we've hit the books, and we've got a better of an understanding and an in-depth review on how these two teams match up. But first, we have some great news, some breaking news. Luke, you were going to do an injury report, and we've got some injury news for everyone.
Exactly right, we do. According to Chris Lowe from ESPN, Nico is playing against Georgia if he can continue through the concussion protocol, but he's looking very good. He's looking to play against Georgia. That's great news. But while we're at it, Nico's great. Let's take a look at Georgia because in all reality, Georgia's not looking too hot right now. Look at this. Top two right here, Roderick and Branson Robinson. They've been out for the season. Running backs for Georgia. They've been out for a while, so it's not too much to worry about. What is to worry about is Trevor Etienne, the running back. Oh, my goodness, he's questionable. That's a big one for Georgia. Okay, you can also look at Cash Jones, another running back. Give me just a second here. Let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 running backs for Georgia. That is, I mean, if they're not reeling, I don't know how they are. I mean, oh my goodness. You got 4 running backs on the injury report. You look at Anthony Evans. He's their punt returner and one of their receivers. That's not good either. Starting right guard Micah Morris. Offensive line is questionable as well. I mean, that's some big stuff right there for Georgia. 4 running backs, an offensive lineman, and their punt returner and receiver. They say we're injured. I mean, look at Georgia.
Sure, and I mean, when you look at this team, Georgia that is, they don't run the ball well in the first place, let alone without Etienne. That's going to be problematic for them.
That's a big one.
That's
and I'll tell you, they're relying on Nate Frazier right now. He's been doing okay, but he doesn't have the same production as Trevor Etienne, so it's going to be one to watch out for.
All right, now let's go big picture here. Let's look at just as a whole, the strength, the weaknesses. Sophie, you did an amazing job in studying all this information. Why don't you spew it out to everyone?
Yeah, little matchup here between these two teams. Looking at Georgia's offensive strengths, this is a team that can move the ball. They're averaging 30.6 points per game, 286 passing yards. They're going to get offensive momentum going. They're first in the SEC on 4th down conversions. Looking at the red zone, 34 of 37 of their trips to the red zone have resulted in scoring. So this is a hard team to stop as far as offensive momentum. Looking at us, obvious things here. We've studied them. We said them a little bit in Orange Zone 1. Run game for us, Dylan Sampson, 200-plus running yards. Passing is up there, little consistency issues, 236, a little behind Georgia, but I think if we're consistent, Nico's back. Yay. Hopefully we can get that up there. Tight ends underrated. Miles Kitzelman, think that can be a weapon for us. Defensive strengths. These teams' defense, this is the anchor. This is how they win games. Georgia's 6th pass and rush defense. Malachi Starks leads the team in 49 tackles. He's a safety. Got to look out for him. Us, I could mention maybe every aspect of our defense and why it's good, but I'm going to use a stat I used earlier. 10th straight game, held a team under 20 points. Enough said. Moving on to weaknesses here. Looking at Georgia, run game, problem for them. Probably has to do a little bit with injuries, we're going to say. But I'm not going to let them have that excuse. 124 yards on the ground. That is awful. The only team worse than them, LSU. They are also third worst in the SEC turnovers. 15 interceptions. Luke Attal is going to tell us a little more about that later. Let's just say Carson Beck may or may not be leading the nation in interceptions. We're going to find out later. Looking at maybe not. Looking at Tennessee, seen this momentum. We got shut out 3 first halves, pass receiver errors, inaccuracy, drop passes, and injury report. Dante Thornton Jr., big part of this offense. Hopefully we're going to see him back. Defense, just exhaustion for Georgia. Being out there so much. We saw it in Ole Miss. We saw it in Alabama. They get tired. Injury again, big issue here. Their D-line has not been healthy the entirety of the season. It could hurt them. Looking at us, our defensive weakness is just that overwhelming weight of being number 1 in the SEC. It just, to carry that level of success just takes a toll. But in all seriousness, maybe some communication errors for us, but overall I think our defense is going to get the job done. There's your little matchup report on these teams.
That's excellent. That is great information. Now, you mentioned it earlier. We need to talk about it. It is the elephant in the room. Carson Beck keeps throwing interceptions. Georgia fans aren't happy about it. We hopefully will be very happy about it. Luke, what are you seeing on that front?
It is the elephant in the room. It is a very big elephant in the room. Carson Beck has 12 interceptions on the year, and he has 4 games with over 2 interceptions. All of his interceptions are in SEC play, by the way, and we're going to take a look at some of them. We start here in Tuscaloosa, and you see this is just a terrible read here. If we pause it, we're going to take a look at this one closer. And if we pause it, right as he's releasing the football, you'll see his intended wide receivers on the yellow line, the first down marker right there. Only problem, he's got 1, 2, 3 Alabama defenders waiting to pick him off and take it back for a return, which they do. And now you think that's bad. Well, we got a couple more examples coming. We're going to go to Texas, Week 8, another 3 interception game for Beck. And this is an acrobatic interception, so got to give credit to the DB. But again, just a terrible read by Beck. And if we look at what he's looking at from the pocket, again, pause it. His wide receiver is on the numbers right now, breaking towards the middle of the field. Same thing that you saw in Bama. You got 2 Texas defenders that are just licking their chops, hoping that he throws the ball in their direction so that they can make a play, which they do. We got one more. We're back in Athens, Week 10 versus the Florida Gators, and this is his 3rd 3-interception game of the season. You'll see here, just throws it right to the defender. Again, a bad read, but one more time, let's take a look at what Carson Beck sees from the pocket. Now, you'll see he rolls out, and if we pause it right there, you see his receiver might look open, but you got 2 Florida defenders, 1 up top, 1 down low, that are waiting to converge on this ball and make a play, which they do, as you see right here. And that is just another ugly interception for Carson Beck and this Georgia offense.
You know, it's a good day when you get to see Luke talk about Texas. we were joking. You weren't looking. You were looking at the monitor, but they were like, you know, this Texas is an acrobat play. It's really
Such
good.
a play.
We were
Wow.
just like, okay.
I'd like to think I framed it more as the interception. But changing the topic to Tennessee now, though, if you're Jermon McCoy and Will Brooks and you're this Tennessee DBs, you got to be pretty excited to play Carson Beck, considering how many interceptions he's thrown on the season. I mean, the Vols defense have already caught 4 interceptions on quarterbacks this year, and I'm expecting that number to go up this game. I mean, if you're Jermon McCoy, yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're just feasting at those balls. I mean, there's nothing you can really. Well, okay, they're looking. They're
you got to be
on
excited
defense.
about it.
They're really excited.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
100%.
Now, one thing I want to place real quick: interceptions. We look at Will Brooks. Don't be surprised if this game is very close and we see that we need a miracle and you see Will Brooks' beautiful white gloves go up and grab that ball and run it back 90 yards.
He's a game changer.
Don't be surprised. Now, I want to look at the Georgia defense, something that has been crowned as one of the best since I've really started watching college football, since a lot of people have started watching college football. But what they did against Ole Miss was not the best by any stretch of the imagination. Let's run the tape because I did a little bit of an in-depth look. Now, as you can see, they rushed for a lot, and they had 2 linebackers. Now, what does that mean? That means that both of these linebackers have to look at both of these guys in the backfield. Problem is, those guys have no chance of going out and getting that ball, and that leaves a lot of space for a receiver. I mean, look at that. If you remove the ref, the only thing there is the logo. There's so much space. It's a foot race, and you've got plenty of wide open grass to get a chunk of yardage. Now, see again, this is all the same drive, by the way. 2 high safeties, 2 linebackers, looks like they're rushing 4, but they're schemy. They know what they're doing. DN drops back, linebacker goes. Again, that's not a problem because Ole Miss has 2 guys in the backfield, which means that you got to cover both of those guys. Safety's over here. That leaves so much space at the top, just like last time. It's hard for 3 guys to cover that much space, and you're going to see Jackson Dart has plenty of time to pass because they blocked those 2 backs. And again, huge chunk play right after the one that just happened. Then we're moving on. 3rd down now. They need a play. We look. Rushing 3 this time with a quarterback spy on a quarterback that's injured, not the best decision in the world. Regardless, that leaves everyone almost on an island with 2 safeties. But if you look at this receiver, all you got to do is beat 1 guy, and then you're going against a safety like it's a one-on-one, which happens here. Now, granted, it's an amazing catch, but that's nothing in that video is something that Tennessee can't do. Everything there is something that they can do, something they have done perhaps, but you got to have the guts to do it. I'm scared that Tennessee's going to walk in, they're going to run the ball. You're not going to be able to run the ball in Georgia, period. Do not run the ball if it is 1st and 10 and you need to get yards. You're going to get behind on every single down, just like what happened against Arkansas, and it's not going to work. Heupel needs to sit down, Tell Nico, whether he's in concussion protocol or not, put on the concussion glasses and a helmet if you need to. Tell him that you need to pass this ball efficiently like he did against Mississippi State, like he did against Texas, or like he did against Kentucky, not Texas. I looked at you and got confused. They need to slow things down. They need to pass the ball efficiently because if they do it right, they will be successful. Maybe pull guys back into the backfield, make Georgia have to guard people and open up space. Tennessee likes a wide offense. They need to take advantage of it in this game.
Well, I'll tell you, even if Nico, whatever wasn't playing, those are throws that Gaston Moore could make.
Sure.
It's very easy for Gaston Moore to go out there. Sure, he airs it out, but those are throws that any backup quarterback in college football should make.
And Ole Miss's backup quarterback did that on the second drive of the game when Jackson Dart was getting his ankle, lower leg, whatever it was, looked at. This is a winnable game if they can take advantage of what Georgia is doing. You're not going to be able to run the ball. Dylan Sampson is not going to have 100-yard rushing unless something crazy happens. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's very unlikely. You're going to have to win through the air, and you're also going to have to capitalize on special teams. Max Gilbert is doing a great job right now. We're going to have to capitalize on what needs to happen into the scoring category and through the air. Regardless, let's move on. I keep getting animated today. Now, we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to do our great, good, bad, ugly. Why don't we start with our great?
And you saw last week, I love my FCS schools, and we're going back to another FCS school.
Here we go.
Long Island University against St. Mercer. And now let me set the stage for you a little bit. We got 4th and inches late in the third quarter, just going for the tush push, getting the first down, but quarterback runs it for 55 yards into the end zone. A tush push gone right for once. And I mean, he's excited. He walks in the end zone backwards. There's nobody around him, and that is just an exciting clip for Long Island University and FCS football. And, I mean, you love to see it from the little guys there, right?
It looks like you when we're playing football out on Circle Park. I mean, just
what,
really
just wide open, wide open with the ball constantly?
Just showboating on the way to the end zone. Very similar. Let's move on to our good now.
Yeah, let's take a look at good here. It's Nevada versus Boise State, and it's not Genty making the highlight reel. It's Nevada. 4th and 1. They're going to throw this to the receiver who's going to throw it. Caught by Ramsert, the 20. Oh, my goodness. He's breaking tackles. Then at the 10, breaks another tackle, 5, and stumbles into the end zone on 4th and 1. Let's take a look at this again. Pitches it to the receiver. The receiver throws. Milan throws it to Ramseur, and he's going to run it in. I mean, how about the special plays there from Nevada against a very powerful this season Boise State?
Now, you were talking about special plays, or not special plays, we were talking about a little bit of trick plays last week. How about that right there?
That's
they
phenomenal.
needed those spins. Needed some Chris Berman. Whoops! I mean, that was impressive. That was nice. Let's move on to bad. And who else but the Florida Seminoles?
Yeah, just this could be more about their season as a whole than just this play against Notre Dame. They're looking at a 3-win season at most. They're 1-9 right now. Maybe they're going to be 3-9, but let's take a look at this play right here. 4th quarter, it's 45-3. They are just, please, desperate. Offensive momentum. Oh, we're close. 20-yard up, intercepted. Not only intercepted, returned for 6 by Notre Dame. If that, they didn't need a cherry on top to their season, there it is, getting blown out by Notre Dame.
How about the quarterback making the effort? Looks like he's swimming.
Brock Lynn, their quarterback, 5 of 18 passes, 2 interceptions, sacked 4 times.
Oh, no.
If they have not been through enough, there you go. Just bad.
Better than what DJ Uiagalelei would have done. I mean, he has not been playing well either. I think they're cursed with curses there, not cursed with riches. Let's move on to ugly, and this is a unique one. We got a play call ugly. Now, if you don't know, Ohio State beat the brakes off of Purdue like most people do against Purdue, but there's a little bit of something different here in this clip as Gus Johnson is calling the touchdown. Let me see if you can pick up on it.
First team over the last couple of years, but that's starting to change this year with Will Howard and more specifically Chip Kelly as the play caller. First down at the 25 for Purdue, and a fumble on the play. Ohio State is there. They pick it up and run it in for a touchdown. Jack Sawyer.
I mean, Gus, are we playing golf? Where's the energy? It looks like it's like, and Tiger at the tee, and it's a beautiful stroke as it goes up onto the. It's like, where's the Gus Johnson is known for his energy and how beat down as a team that you get Gus Johnson sound like he's calling golf. Not the prettiest thing in the world by any stretch of the imagination. Not pretty. Not very pretty. Well, that's all we have for this episode of Torch Sports. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're traveling to Athens, stay safe. If you get barked at, ignore them. That's weird. And go Vols, of course. Let's get to the SEC final if we can win this one. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you right back here next week. Peace.